Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Nothing But Nugs podcast, back at long last. I know it feels like it's been an eternity since we've been on live or posted anything on social media. We're back. It's been because of a lot of different things, quite honestly. I was sick for 2 weeks, and well, last week was Easter Sunday, so we took that week off. And you might notice that I am not sitting at the table today, and in fact, I am sitting in this fun little corner office in my apartment. That is because Garrett is not here with me. Garrett will not be here with me for the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of stuff pop up in his life that has caused him to be very busy. And so he does not have time to hop on the pod with me at this point in time. So what this has pretty much become is a situation similar to the beginning of Hoops and Homers, which is the very first podcast that I had done here for Elevated Pulse Sports. By the way, this podcast is a part of the Elevated Pulse Sports family of podcasts. We have the Rockies Now podcast. We have the Broncos Zone podcast, and we're soon to have the Eyes on Avs podcast up and running again. And obviously, you know about Nothing But Nugs. So go ahead, check out all those podcasts if you are into Colorado sports and you consider yourself a diehard Colorado sports fan. But like I said, I'll be holding it down with us tonight. And unfortunately, it's been so long since we've recorded that we really don't have any predictions to bully each other about, which is quite unfortunate because that was actually one of the most fun parts of our podcast. And it was actually a pretty competitive competition as well. You know, I think based on the last predictions we made, Garrett was 10-8 in our weekly prediction competition. He went out on top. I can completely see why he would want to dip on the podcast now. Leave while you're winning. But all jokes aside, it's good to be back. It's good to be talking about some Nuggets basketball again. And my goodness, is there a lot to talk about? Not just because we've missed several weeks, but because this team is finally starting to put it all together. And you couldn't have picked a better time for them to put everything together than the last few weeks of the regular season, leading into the postseason, which I believe begins next weekend, believe it or not. Wow, where did the season go? My goodness, time is just absolutely flying. But yeah, Nuggets have been cooking. 10-game winning streak is still intact. It is still alive. Will it be alive after tonight's game against the Thunder? I suppose we'll see. You know, it's interesting that none of the starters for either team are playing, but of course, it is almost the end of the regular season, and pretty much the Thunder, and I mean, not necessarily the Nuggets, but to some extent, both teams are comfortable with and or locked in with their postseason seeding, and so they really don't have any reason to risk getting any starters hurt. Starters also might be dealing with some injuries just prior to this game anyway. So some are out for rest reasons. Some are out maybe because they're dealing with some injuries and want to get healthy before the postseason begins. But either way, we get a backups battle tonight in Oklahoma City. And so we will, I think it's in Oklahoma City, right? Hopefully I am on top of my game here when it comes to where the Nuggets are playing. Earlier in the season, I said the Nuggets were playing in Utah and they were actually playing here. That was kind of awkward. No one even really noticed that I said that at that time. Oh, no, it's here. It's here in Denver. Okay. So, I mean, we'll see if the Nuggets backups can take the dub here on a very, very important Friday evening for them. Because, I mean, we'll get to this a little bit later on. But, I mean, seeding is still up for grabs. Still up for grabs. And you got the Lakers and Houston battling with the Denver Nuggets for that 3 seed. Okay. Houston, well, not Houston. Oklahoma City's locked in to their number 1 seed. San Antonio's locked into their number 2 seed, and the Timberwolves are locked in to their number 6 seed. As far as the play-in teams, 7 through 10, not sure if the seeding is still up for grabs there, but the play-in teams are obviously locked in the Western Conference, and something similar with the East, although there's still a decent amount of seeding up for grabs between seeds 5 and like seed 8 or 9. Heck of a competition out there in the East. But for the Nuggets, they've got some seeding competition that they need to concern themselves with. And so tonight's game might actually be important, even though you don't have any of the stars playing. So we'll get to that later on, like I said. But first, let's just walk through what exactly has changed with this Denver Nuggets team over the last 2 or so weeks. Because between the beginning of March and mid-March, there was some legitimate concern from a lot of people. a lot of people were very concerned that this Nuggets team was just not going to have the juice to even finish maybe with a top 4 seed and get home court in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Right? They went 5-5 between March 1st and March 18th. Okay. Lost at home against Minnesota, beat the Jazz at Utah. All right. So that was a pretty self-explanatory win. They came home and beat the Lakers in a close national television game, 120-113. Then they got absolutely obliterated by the New York Knicks on a Friday evening. Okay. 142-103. Goodness gracious. Yeah, I remember that game. Lost at OKC close. All right. That was a very competitive game as well, similar to the Lakers game. Then they beat Houston, utterly obliterated Houston, actually, 129-93. At that point, they went into San Antonio. And like I predicted on that podcast episode that week, they went into San Antonio and beat San Antonio by the exact point differential that I thought they would. So that was the highlight of my Nothing But Nugs tenure so far, making that bold prediction the week before. Garrett thought I was absolutely insane for picking Denver to go into San Antonio and do that. It's just the way it works, man. All right. I'm on top of these things. All right. At that point, then they went to LA, lost in overtime. But I mean, after looking at the way that the final minute of that game went down, and later on NBA correcting the fact that there was an incorrect call made that benefited the Lakers in the final like 9 seconds of that game, that contributed to them being able to make the game tying a 2-point shot to send it to overtime. At that point, you're kind of like, that's a painful loss, because now for that reason, the Nuggets do not hold the tiebreaker over the Lakers. So they need to outright have a better record than them to finish with a higher seed than them. So that was kind of annoying. After that game, they came back home, crushed Philadelphia. Again, pretty explainable. But then they went to Memphis. And even though the last time they had gone to Memphis, it was a much closer game than anyone anticipated it would be, we thought that this time around it might be a little bit different. And this time it was a little bit different. Instead of the Nuggets winning, the Nuggets lost. Okay, 125-118. And at that point, there was, like I said, there was a lot of cause for concern. Okay, very, very concerning. Just performance overall. You know, the team still wasn't totally healthy. Guys were kind of in and out of the lineup. It was very interesting. But during that period of 10 games, the Nuggets offense averaged about 122 points per game, gave up about 120 points per game, shot 49% from the field, 38% from three, so a little bit below their season average at that point. 30 assists per game, 44 rebounds per game, 14 turnovers per game. And the Nuggets had been a top 5 team in the NBA pretty much the entire season up until that point in time. They might still be now. When it came to turnovers per game, they were just not turning the ball over. They weren't making unforced errors. For whatever reason, this week, they averaged about 2 or 3 more turnovers per game than their season average. And in this Memphis game, Nikola Jokic had, I think, 10 turnovers. I think that was the 10 turnover Nikola Jokic game. So people were very concerned. Okay. Then everything changed. Okay. Apparently, something was said in that locker room. Coach Adelman did something, said something. The teammates said something that just lit a fire under this team. All right. And now we've maintained, at least I've maintained since the beginning of the season, right, that this team can win the NBA championship this season if they stay healthy. Health has been their number one issue all season. Said it time and time again. First few weeks of the regular season, Denver Nuggets were top 5 offensively and defensively through like 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. So a few games under their belt. Then that's when the injuries happened, early November. And well, they were able to weather the storm. Okay. Incredibly so. Absolute testament to the personnel on this team this year, the players, the depth that the front office acquired in setting that situation up, and also Coach Adelman and his assistant coaches as well. I mean, to be able to game plan and win games with a team that's lacking that much depth as this team has had throughout the season, okay, for extended periods of time, months of the season, to be able to weather that and find yourself sitting in the 3rd seed, higher than you did last season, is just an absolute win in and of itself. Now, obviously, that's not the goal. Health is not the goal for this team. The goal for this team is to win a second NBA championship. You have the best player in the world on your roster. That needs to happen. But at a minimum, like last season, the whole way that this season has gone would have been a completely foreign thought. Just completely foreign. No one would have ever envisioned the Nuggets being able to do this last season because the depth last season was so terrible. All the front office and coaching staff drama, all of that combined, just completely unfathomable. But anyway, the Nuggets turned it around. Okay. Home against Toronto, they won that game. Home against Portland, they won. At Phoenix, national television, they won that game. Versus Dallas, at home, won that game. Utah, won. Golden State, won. Obliterated, actually. 116-93. Now, I don't think Golden State was fully healthy in that game. Okay. Last time they might have been more healthy than the last time the Nuggets played them in Golden State. So the last time the Nuggets played them in Golden State, they did not have Jimmy Butler. They did not have Kristaps Porzingis, etc. They might not even had Steph Curry. So they obliterated Golden State, went to Utah, beat Utah, came back home, actually, against San Antonio, won in overtime against San Antonio, won in overtime against Portland, and this time they were able to deal with Memphis, even though Memphis kept it kind of close up until about the third quarter or so. Anyway, 10 straight wins is where we find ourselves today. Okay, now during this 10-game winning streak, the defense hasn't really changed. Okay, they were giving up 120 points per game in the 10 games before the 10-game winning streak. Okay, they were giving up and have been giving up 121 points per game during the 10-game winning streak. So the defense has not been incredible by any stretch of the imagination. But the offense, let me tell you, the offense has been historically good. Like top 3 offensive rating in a 10-game stretch of all time with all-time consideration. That's how good the offense has been in the last 10 games. 131 points per game and only 2 overtime games played in that period. Okay. They're absolutely torching on offense. Absolutely torching. 52% from the field, 42% from 3-point range, 33 assists, 46 rebounds, and the turnovers are back down to a normal season average of 11 per game. Okay. The team has been playing really well in every conceivable offensive way. Defense, again, kind of a concern for some people. But if you think about it this way, the 2023 championship Denver Nuggets team also had a sort of mid defense, if you will, throughout most of the regular season. Why is that? Why is that? It's because the regular season is a grind. Okay. In the day and age of people sitting out games for rest reasons, load management, and the league trying to deal with that, it makes sense that some of these championship contender teams are going to play more of their depth throughout the regular season. They're going to use some of their 10, 11, 12 guys on the roster more to preserve their stars' ability to perform in the postseason. But it also makes sense that the team is only going to play defense when it absolutely has to. Okay? And so people said the same thing about the Nuggets in 2023. The defense is about middle of the league, and historically, it's hard to win an NBA championship when you don't have a top 10 defense. The Nuggets went on to win the championship. Why? Because they locked it up defensively in the postseason when they needed to. Okay? I think this team can do the exact same thing. Okay? They haven't done it so far, but the postseason really does come down to being the defense wins championships type of mentality. You can get away with being an incredible offense in the NBA regular season and putting up 125, 130 points per game. But in the postseason, it really is the defense that has to take priority and then making timely shots when you need to. Okay. Your superstars need to show up, obviously. And then you just need those timely shots from those role players to be able to hold it down in the postseason. Okay. The Nuggets have demonstrated that they can do that before. They've got the personnel to be able to do that this postseason. Okay. So I'm not too terribly concerned about the fact that over the 10-game winning streak, they're giving up 121 points per game, because I think, historically speaking, they're able to lock it in when they need to. Okay. So that's the head-to-head comparison, if you will, between the 10 games prior to the 10-game winning streak and then the 10 games during the 10-game winning streak. Now, as far as the offensive system, we have to talk about some of the changes that have been made here. Okay. You don't just magically end up producing one of the best offensive ratings over a period of 10 games in NBA history by doing the same general types of things that you were doing in any other given week. Okay. So what's changed with the Nuggets offensive system and plays over the last 10 games? Well, the half court system actually is quite honestly mostly the same. All right, pretty Jokic centric with a lot of those horn sets, a lot of those pick and roll actions. But before the streak, the execution was a little bit jagged, some might say. Okay, particularly when it comes to shooting the three. We've been on this all season. The Denver Nuggets need to make a high percentage of their threes and take more threes. Okay, they haven't necessarily listened to the second part of that, the second recommendation we've made. But when it comes to shooting high percentage, they've been pretty good at that. But during that 10-game period before the 10-game winning streak, they were just not shooting well from three at all. I mean, it bottomed out with them shooting 27% against Minnesota in that loss that they had to Minnesota. They also only made 8 threes against the New York Knicks in the whole game. Eight threes. And 6 of those, I think, came in the fourth quarter when the third string players were in the game. So 3-point shooting was just an absolute nightmare, okay, during that period of time prior to the 10-game winning streak. It was just absolutely terrible. You know, the spacing was collapsing under pressure, especially against those elite defenses like Oklahoma City and New York. The assists per game were also kind of lower just because the ball movement had stalled. All right. When Joker gets doubled, you have to be able to get open if you are a role player on this team. And for whatever reason, during that period of time, they were just unable to do that. Okay. Now they did play some pretty good defenses like we kind of just mentioned, but nonetheless, I mean, you have a guy who's getting doubles, sometimes triple teamed on offensive possessions. That leaves 1 or 2 guys available to get a decent look. So the execution was just not good. All right. The cuts were ineffective. Skip passes weren't being made effectively. And that's why the turnovers also went through the roof during that period of time. 14 turnovers per game for a team that had averaged about 11 per game throughout the entire regular season. It was not good. Joker was obviously still good during that period of time, you know, averaged about 29 points per game, 12 or so rebounds and 10 assists. But the offense, you know, the creation off of his being the hub of the offense was just very, very ineffective. All right. Also, on top of that, you had some guys who were in and out of the lineup, you know, Cam Johnson, Peyton Watson, Spencer Jones. So the rotational chemistry and cohesion was just not gelling the way that it needed to. But during the win streak, that changed. Okay. The offense became one of the best offenses in NBA history over this period of time. Literally. All right. Absolutely insane. Yeah, like we said, 131 points per game on average during this stretch. Just absolutely crazy. The massive offensive upgrade here was a sort of revival of the Joker Jamal two-man game. Okay. Especially in clutch situations. People had gotten on this team about being a terrible clutch team this season, which is very uncharacteristic for them. But again, injuries factor into that. New rotational pieces factor into that. You know, 4 new contributing Nuggets added to the roster this season. So there was a lot of chemistry stuff that really did need to be hammered out. And so it's understandable that the clutch aspects kind of disappeared from most of the regular season. But like we said, we're now in the final, at this point, before even kind of in the middle of the win streak, we're a few weeks out of the NBA postseason being upon us. So it's now time for them to get their execution on track. And that's exactly what they did. All right. Joker Jamal, two-man game, in clutch situations. They were locking it in. Okay. More horns actions with Nikola and Murray at the elbows, you know, forcing defenses into tougher switches. And so, I mean, at that point, if you get that switch, Joker ends up getting mismatched on a post up. And it just becomes a very, very easy situation for the Nuggets cutters and shooters to deal with. So really everything for pretty much the entire last 7 to 9 years that this team has played has centered around the Joker Jamal two-man game. Even under Coach Malone, obviously, this has been the bread and butter of the Nuggets offense. And so the fact that they're getting back to it the last few weeks is clearly one of the reasons why the offense continues to improve, despite still not taking a ton of threes per game on average. Just despite that, they're still putting up insane amount of points game in and game out. That's just how effective this offense can be when it's running through the right foundational channels. And so that was very, very important. Okay, you had a lot of double high screens for Murray with off-ball screens from both Joker and Aaron Gordon. This is where Aaron Gordon factors back into the mix because on those screen plays, he's a threat. in the paint and behind the three-point line. It's so important that the Nuggets have finally gotten Aaron Gordon back and in the lineup more regularly over the last few weeks. Just absolutely invaluable, man. It puts a ton of pressure on trailing defenders, gets a lot of good three-point looks, even for guys like Cam Johnson, who, by the way, has been playing a lot better as the season has gone on here the last few weeks. It's just good to see, man. A lot of more 5-out pick and roll sets as well in late game situations. Look, you have to be able to clear out space in the paint for Joker to work, okay, and for him to kick when he gets that inevitable double team put on him. And so for those reasons, I mean, this team has just absolutely elevated, and you're starting to see why this championship contender identity has been placed on them from the beginning of the season, and why people really shouldn't have wavered on it, even despite all the injuries, because all this team needed to do was get healthy and then get in a rhythm again. Okay, it's not been a personnel issue. Personnel has not been the issue with this team. Most of the time, coaching hasn't really been an issue with this team. Health has been the number one issue. So now that they're healthy, you're starting to see all these amazing sets come out. You're starting to see guys knock down shots because the foundation of your offense is intact. You're starting to see some of the versatility that guys like Aaron Gordon can bring when he's in the lineup and healthy. Something similar with Christian Brown, who's shooting a little bit better, even from three recently. Jamal also, I mean, historically efficient shooting over the last few weeks. Absolutely insane. Had that 53-point game against Dallas, became the Nuggets all-time single-season three-point shooter in terms of three-pointers made during a season. So, I mean, the offense has just absolutely been insane. Now, as far as the rotations are concerned, the starting five is finally back and healthy and in a rhythm, which is great. For a while there, they really did like going with the small ball option. Jonas Valanciunas did miss, or at least not necessarily miss, but he didn't get as much playing time in a decent amount of games a few weeks ago. But over the last few games, he started getting worked back into the rotation, which is absolutely necessary. Okay, they do need someone who can go out and give Joker some minutes, and especially if you might get matched up against the Minnesota Timberwolves. You need somebody who can go out there and fight for rebounds when Joker's not on the court for the 8 to 10 minutes that he takes off in a playoff game. You just need that. Can't run small ball against some of these bigger teams in the Western Conference. It's just not going to work for you, even if it's for a small period of time. It's just not going to work. So it's good to see that Jonas is getting back into the rotation as well. Believe it or not, now, I know Peyton Watson has not been terribly healthy even since coming back from injury a few weeks ago, but the Jokic, Murray, Gordon, Watson quartet was actually the best overall rated offensive unit, just overall unit, actually, during the last few weeks, okay, when it was on the court. So, again, testament to P-Watt and his absolutely insane ascension this season that really no one saw coming. Okay, he had kind of shown bits and pieces of it over the last few seasons as he's been trying to develop into a rotational player consistently. But I mean, he's absolutely taken incredible strides this season, offensively, defensively. He's going to get paid this offseason. And we're going to see if the Nuggets are going to be able to clear up some space to be able to keep him on this team. Because, I mean, a net 45 plus rating in 60 minutes for that group of four, that's just absolutely crazy. Tim Hardaway Jr. continued getting good looks. All right. He has been the most free shooting player probably in the NBA this entire season. Okay. He's been allowed to pull the trigger on literally anything he wants to, pretty much at any time when he's in the game. And so he continues to shoot well. I mean, 14 points per game, 41% from three this season. Just absolutely incredible. I did not anticipate the Nuggets getting this much out of Tim Hardaway Jr. when they signed him this offseason, and he continues to show up. Now, if this were Garrett talking, Garrett would probably throw a massive warning sign up and say, hey, we'll see if he can do that in the postseason. Okay, we will see if he can do that in the postseason. I think he can. I don't know why he wouldn't be able to, especially if Joker's going to get even more double teams and triple teams thrown at him. Yeah, he should get some pretty good looks, and he's got the range to even pull back a little bit if a defense is getting up and a little bit too aggressive on any given offensive possession. Also, a massive shout out to Julian Strawther, man. Shooting from 3 over the last few games has been really good. Okay. I mean, in February, he was about 40% from the field, 42% in March is what he's at, 50% in April. And so he's really stepping up from a 3-point shooting perspective. He started off the season very cold from the 3-point line. And in fact, there was a period of time in there where he was taking more 2s than 3s, which was kind of weird, especially considering he's made his identity known at the NBA level from the 3-point line mostly. But he's been playing really well, especially given that Peyton Watson and Spencer Jones have kind of been in and out of the lineup the last few weeks. He's just been absolutely phenomenal. As far as the defense and the clutch play is concerned, all right, Nuggets were 1-6 in clutch games in February. Not good. Okay. Like we said earlier, not something that historically is the case for them. And that continued into early March as well, which is why people were so concerned about the fact that the Nuggets weren't really playing in alignment with their identity. But I mean, that kind of turned around. It's kind of turned around the last few weeks or so. The pre-streak, they were just not on a roll with that. And now, I mean, they're really locking it up. Okay. From March 1st through April 7th, they're 8-3 in clutch games, in clutch situations. Massive turnaround. Coach Adelman has been much better with the after timeout play calls. They've been executing those a lot better over the course of March and early April, which is another reason why they've been able to be better in the clutch. And that Jokic Murray 2-man game, it's just holding it down, man. That is almost single-handedly the reason why all of this is possible. They're getting back to it. And it's not that they're getting back to it. It's about the point in the season where they need to be preparing their playoff type of approach and mentality. So it makes perfect sense that this is something we're starting to see more as the regular season concludes. And it's also good to see that they're executing it well, not just that we're seeing it more, but that they're executing it at a high level. Okay. The Nuggets defensively also, they've seemed to switch. They switched their defensive set to a lot more zone, and the zone is really not incredible. Honestly, it doesn't look very good. They don't seem to play significantly better defense, if better defense at all in zone. But I mean, it's better than them switching everything, I suppose, at least in the mind of Coach Adelman. And so that approach has contributed to the ability for them to disrupt some timing, and it's helped them in some late game situations as well. All right. Joker obviously thrives when he has the ability to get his hands in passing lanes. He's not obviously known for his blocks, but he is known for being at the top of the league in deflections. So it makes perfect sense that is the defensive approach that they're going to, even though it hasn't been terribly effective. 121 points per game is just not going to cut it for you. But we'll see if they can refine that a little bit heading on into the postseason. So yeah, man, it's been absolutely amazing to watch this team over the last few weeks. They're really locking it in. Now, let's transition into some playoff seeding discussion here as we wrap up today's episode. It won't be as long as most of our episodes are because it's just me, and you probably don't want to hear me monologue for a whole hour 15 minutes, which is totally understandable. And there's a Nuggets game in about 45 minutes. So we also want y'all to get back to be able to prepare yourselves to sit down and watch that game. But as of today, the Denver Nuggets, Los Angeles Lakers, and Houston Rockets are all, like I said earlier, battling for that 3 through 5 seeding in the Western Conference. Okay. The Denver Nuggets are 52-28. Houston and LA are both 51-29. Okay. So this is very important. Okay. Now, as far as the tiebreakers, we already know Lakers hold the tiebreaker over the Denver Nuggets, right? We talked about that earlier. Lakers also hold the tiebreaker over the Rockets, believe it or not. Okay. So if they finish with the same record, LA gets the higher seed. Now the Nuggets hold the tiebreak over the Houston Rockets as well. So Houston, in all likelihood, is probably going to finish with the 5th seed. If things go the way they should, that is the way that it will work. And then it's really up to the Nuggets to hold on to their 3 seed. They control their own destiny. Denver could completely control their 3 seed situation here if they win out. Now, easier said than done, obviously. You play Oklahoma City tonight, and you play San Antonio on Sunday. And you probably sit your starters for both games, right? One might presume. Okay. You would rather have your team healthy and ready to go with a 5th seed in the NBA playoffs than risk getting one of them hurt in either of these 2 games, trying to hold on to the 3 seed. Okay. Just in my opinion, I think that should be the priority, but we'll see how it goes. As far as the schedules, already just mentioned the Nuggets schedule. Okay. OKC and San Antonio. As far as the Lakers are concerned, they play Phoenix tonight. Okay. At home. Then they travel to Utah on Sunday to take on the Jazz. Easy, relatively speaking, schedule compared to what the Nuggets are playing. And so even though the Lakers are missing Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic, could you see them really losing to either of those teams? I mean, maybe the Phoenix Suns, right? Maybe you could see the Phoenix Suns as a play-in team being competitive and knocking off the Lakers tonight. But I mean, I think even an unhealthy Lakers team beats the Utah Jazz on Sunday. The Houston Rockets' last 2 games involve the Minnesota Timberwolves. They play them at home. Okay, then they play the Memphis Grizzlies at home. Okay, the Grizzlies are tough. The Grizzlies will compete. Obviously, Minnesota will compete. Minnesota can't improve their playoff seeding. They're locked into that 6th seed. But I mean, it'll be a competitive game. That's for sure. Not sure about the injury situation in either the Lakers games or the Rockets games, but you would presume that the Rockets and the Lakers will be able to win at least one of those games, which is good news for the Nuggets. Okay. Takes a little bit of pressure off if the Lakers and the Rockets win just one of those games, right? But the Nuggets still have to hold it down on their end. Now, here are the seeding scenarios. Obviously, the best seeding situation the Nuggets can have is the 3rd seed, and the worst they can have is the 5th seed. Okay, difference between home court in the first round and not home court in the first round. Now, the Nuggets lock in a 3 seed by winning both of their remaining games. Okay, it would be 54-28. LA can't touch them. Houston can't touch them. Nuggets have tiebreak over Houston anyway, so it doesn't even matter. Alternatively, the Nuggets, if they win tonight and Houston loses, also effectively clinches them the 3 seed because, again, Lakers are a game behind the Nuggets with 2 games left. If the Nuggets win tonight, they effectively lock it up, right? They effectively lock up the 3 seed. They can stay at 3 with losses too, obviously, but like we kind of just said, it's going to be tough for that situation to be the one that you want to bank on. There's really not much to talk about in terms of those scenarios, right? Because it's the Lakers being unable to surpass them on record, given that tiebreak situation. But I mean, these tight games, right? If the Nuggets can maybe lose tonight but beat San Antonio on Sunday, then maybe you have a similar situation. Ultimately, the takeaway is that the Nuggets need to win at least one of these 2 games, and the Lakers need to lose at least one of their 2 games. If that happens, Nuggets lock up the 3 seed. Now, the Nuggets would drop to the 5th seed if they lost both games. The Lakers won at least 1 game, and the Rockets won both of their games. That is how the Nuggets would end up with the 5th seed in the Western Conference standings. And that's not necessarily what you would want to see, obviously, but it's definitely possible. It's possible, especially if the Nuggets aren't going to play their starters in either game. Okay, you're playing against the top 2 teams in the Western Conference in the season. That's just the way it shook out. Could you see Houston beating both Minnesota and Memphis? Yeah, I think you could. Could you see the Lakers winning one of either the Suns game or the Jazz game? Yeah, you could. So there's a very real situation here where the Nuggets end up as the 5th seed. And, at that point, it shakes out again to those tiebreak situations. But if that happened, then I think, because Houston would have the better record, right? Houston and LA both have the same record. They both have 51 wins. If the Lakers win 1 game and Houston wins both, Houston has the better record. And the Nuggets play the Lakers in the first round of the NBA playoffs, and the Lakers have home court. So that's a very interesting situation. And if you were to beat the Lakers, you would then have the absolute pleasure of playing the Oklahoma City Thunder again in the second round. So that's an interesting situation to find yourself in. But again, think about this another way. Maybe maybe the Nuggets lose one game and the Lakers lose one of their final two games and Houston loses one of their two final games. Now you have a situation where the Lakers end up with the 3 seed, the Nuggets end up with the 4 seed, and Houston ends up with the 5 seed. Then you're playing Houston in the first round. I think I like the Nuggets in that series. That's not, as far as ideal, honestly, that might be the most ideal to play Houston. I mean, you lost the season series to the Lakers for what that's worth. Now, you've been good against the Lakers in the postseason historically in the last few seasons. But again, you had also beaten the Lakers in the regular season series in each of those seasons. So I think I'd rather play Houston in the first round than I would rather play the Lakers in the first round. But if that was the case, Nuggets play Houston, and then they still have to play Oklahoma City in the second round if they win. If the Nuggets hold on to the 3rd seed, they play Minnesota in the first round. Now, that prospect is kind of terrifying, if we're being totally honest with ourselves. Nuggets have not had a good track record against Minnesota the last few series they played each other in the postseason. And the last game they played was the most recent game that they played, obviously, but you lost that one as well on your home court. So Minnesota is a tough first round series. That's probably the least favorable first round series, I think, for Denver. But if you get out of that series, you play a young, inexperienced San Antonio Spurs team in the second round, and you have played well against them this season when your team has been healthy. And so as far as which is the most ideal seed for the Nuggets to get, I mean, it really is a toss-up here. I think it's probably Houston. I think I'd rather face Houston in the first round with a 4 seed than the other two situations, right? So that'd be my most favorable. Denver gets the 4 seed. They play Houston in the first round with the potential of facing Oklahoma City in the second. I think that's the most favorable. I think second most favorable is probably the Lakers, right? Quite honestly. But what situation would that be? That would be a situation where the Nuggets are the 5th seed and the Lakers are the 4th seed. I mean, we should have beaten them in LA a few weeks ago, right? So it's not terribly crazy to say that the Nuggets can beat this year's LA team in LA. And especially if Luka and Austin Reeves are unable to come back from injury in a relatively short period of time, if they miss like a game or two of that series, now all of a sudden that might become the most favorable series if you're the Denver Nuggets, even though you don't have home court in the first round. So that Lakers series is definitely second, maybe first, but probably second, just based on how the season has gone in terms of favorability. And then, I mean, I think the least favorable situation here is for you to have to play Minnesota in the first round. That is just not a situation you want to put yourself in. That is a long team. That is a good defensive team. They can throw 3 quality bigs at you. That's just going to be a massive difficulty for the Denver Nuggets with their current roster construction, in my opinion. Okay, so that's easily the least favorable. And then assuming you get out of that series, right, in 6 or 7 games, then you have to take on the San Antonio Spurs, who can throw something very similar at you, right, even though they're very inexperienced, all right? And that really does matter in the postseason, okay? Even though they're inexperienced, that's still a good team. That's a team that you could lose to in 6 or 7 games as well. So that's just not a combination I think you want to end up in if you are the Denver Nuggets. So it's a tough situation that the Nuggets are facing here. But again, 10-game winning streak. Okay, so they're on fire to end the regular season. They've got the momentum. So as far as they're concerned, I'm sure they have their preferences on what seed they want. They probably just want the 3 seed because it's the highest seed and it gives them home court. But I mean, all things considered, there's tons of reason for optimism that they can get through the first round, regardless of whether they face Houston or LA or Minnesota. There's a decent amount of optimism that they can beat Oklahoma City or San Antonio. Okay. They took Oklahoma City to 7 games with a lack of depth last postseason and with some injuries sustained during that series as well. Took them to 7 games. And San Antonio, you've beaten San Antonio in the regular season twice. They're a young team, playoff inexperienced. you could easily see the Nuggets beating Oklahoma City or San Antonio in a 7-game series if they get that far. And then at that point, you get to play the other one that you didn't face in that series, right? Whether it be Oklahoma City or San Antonio in the conference finals, right? Presumably, if everything works out the way people say it should. So it's a very interesting situation. We will see how the seeding shakes out, okay, in the last 2 games of the season here. But again, Nuggets don't have any of their starters tonight. Neither does Oklahoma City. So we'll see how tonight's game goes. So tonight's game say a lot about the seeding situation. But as far as that's concerned, that is all I have for you guys tonight. Thank you for tuning in to the stream for a little bit, shorter stream. It'll be like this for the foreseeable future since Garrett will be unable to make it. We hope he can make it at some point eventually because we do have fun discussions, I think. And I'm sure you guys enjoy his presence here as well. But I will see you guys next Friday with the whole playoff situation set. We'll be ready to talk about the Denver Nuggets push for the second championship of the Nikola Jokic era. But right now, they are riding their momentum. We'll see if that can continue throughout the end of the regular season and then into the postseason, regardless of who they play. So take care. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe to our channel. Go listen to some of our other podcasts. We got some exciting stuff going on over there as well. And I'll see y'all in a week. Take care.